was just on the exchange and liquidity, and whether you've seen any sort of drain on that at all from apparently relaunched BetDAC and Matchbook making another go of it there. And then secondly, on the cost line, obviously costs haven't grown that much, but that's partly because of the decline in, or because marketing has been held relatively flat. But with respect to the other costs, particularly technology, how should we be thinking about the growth trajectory of those? Should they be growing in line with revenues, or should they be growing at a much slower pace, which is what I always thought?
We continue to invest. I mean, there are times, as I said earlier, we continue to invest aggressively in marketing when we can find successful opportunities to deploy marketing capital. The technology spend tends to be a bit lumpier, in that although there is a front-end customer-facing part of this, there's also an infrastructure component to it as well. And that spend tends to be kind of a multi-year cycle type of investment. We haven't given guidance on what individual cost lines will grow with, but I'm sure you're sick hearing us talk about our obsession about operating leverage. Like a primary plank in what we're trying to do here is run this business with discipline and efficiency, and we'll cut our cloth accordingly. So it's conceivable. It hasn't had to happen yet. The revenue growth has allowed us to invest pretty much as we wanted in terms of tech and marketing. But it's conceivable that, you know, at some stage in the future we'll have to make choices, but we're not there just yet. The exchange market the exchange market doesn't get any easier, and it doesn't get any easier for a few reasons. The promotional generosity of bookmakers, including ourselves, but bookmakers, is quite attractive to many exchange customers. The aggressive in pricing from many bookmakers, where you can now bet soccer to 103, 104%, makes it relatively comparable, or makes it relatively competitive in a way that it wasn't previously to the exchange. Matchbook are doing a good job. Indeed, BetDAC are doing some things very well. We take confidence from the fact that we are growing, investing in the brand, and for many people, Betfair is still synonymous with the exchange. So it's unlikely that Smarkets or BetDAC or Matchbook or indeed Betflag in Italy, or some of the other emerging exchanges, you know, that are less UK focused, we keep an eye on them. They have competitive advantages. Some of them have a slight price advantage on us, but very few of them are spending anything like the same amount in terms of marketing. And at this point in time, that's fine. It's more when we lose places like Portugal, that hurts liquidity as well, and that hurts liquidity all across the business. You know, there's a network effect on the way up, but also on the way down. That hasn't been. We've been able to manage that to date, but it's things like that worry us as well.
And I also think it's a spend on technology. Again, very few. I mean, when we talk about technology, we're not just talking about sportsbook. We significantly improve our product and the security and the exchange experience. So I think very few can match that kind of investment, and so hopefully that will also give us a competitive edge going forward.
And sorry, just one other thing on the exchange. Brian, you talked about exchange customers finding the way onto the sports book, whereas in the past, I think the talk has been about sports book customers tending to find their way onto the exchange and becoming stickier. How do you sort of view the net flows of those customers now?
Well, I think, Joe, that particular slide goes back to a customer cohort that really predates the exchange existing in any material, the sportsbook existing in any material way. So the core customer cohort at that stage was largely exchange and some gaming. Some of those customers have net migrated over. Now the customer, the sportsbook, as you know, was the source of the primary new source of customers. Some move across. We focus on cross-sell and what customers move between one product and another. It's not easy to actually aggressively manage that, so we facilitate it as opposed to actively direct customers one way or the other. I'm reasonably happy with how it's working out, but we haven't found a way nor is it obvious that we should try to aggressively migrate customers from one place to another. But there are places on the sportsbook, and I think this is something we will think harder about. There are places on the sportsbook where we actually divert traffic to the exchange. In running horse racing is one obvious example. I think it's something we'll continue to focus on. But we're competing at a more macro level in terms of building the brand, establishing a relationship with customers, and then allowing them to find the right product themselves, as opposed to actively managing through one product or another. You done? Sorry, Ivor.
Morning, thank you. Ivor Jones from Numis. Can we carry on talking about the exchange? Is it growing or shrinking?
The exchange is broadly flat.
And what's life like for the principal liquidity providers into the exchange in that market where it's flat, and you're talking about it being more competitive? I don't understand if it's something that might decline gradually or might reach cliff edges if liquidity declined a bit and then people pulled out their liquidity entirely.
Sure. So we don't know, is the truth. When we sit around and try to scare ourselves and try to, scare our children and stuff, we envisage something like you say, where liquidity dries up. It's pretty competitive on the exchange. I think there's lots of, that's well documented if you read the forums and stuff. The market is, I think, more efficient than it's ever been. That makes, it's big exchange players invest in their pricing capabilities much in the way that we invest in our marketing and technology capabilities. And those that don't invest typically see their whatever edge they had eroded. There are, thankfully, emerging new exchange players who target niches where they find that they have an advantage because they've better models or they've better models or think about risk in a different way. So in totality, it's fine. It'd be great if it grew a bit faster. But it's something it's something I think we're thoughtful about. I don't see any cliff ahead, but maybe that's the nature of these things.
Should we think about you changing premium pricing in order to make life easier for the business, more attractive for layers?
Well, I think it should be noted that aside from an ill-judged comment I made about 3 years ago, we haven't increased prices in our core exchange markets in, I think, the last 5 years. And I very much doubt we'll be increasing prices in the exchange in our core markets.
But that is the answer to a different question.
That is true. It's an answer to a different question. I personally have no issue with giving customers more value if it's clear to them they're getting more value. So I suppose that allows us to envisage price cuts in the exchange. We've no plan to do that at the moment.
Thank you. Generally, the business plan you're talking about now, is this the pre-acquisition business plan? Or are there things that you're doing, not investing in now, in anticipation of
No,
acquisition?
these businesses, it's my first deal of this kind. It's fascinating how little engagement we have with Paddy Power. We remain in competition with them. Both sides are advised by lawyers that we should have less rather than more engagement. So all of the conversation, all of our thinking and all of our investment, or almost all of our thinking and almost all of our investment is kind of the existing business plan.
Okay. And lastly, you've probably told me this before, why does revenue grow more than handle in TVG? I thought it was a fixed percentage of handle.
No, it's not a fixed percentage of handle. It's a very, there's two parts to it. It's a very complicated equation where, based on the location of the customer and the location of the track, you have different margin things. And separate from that, there's a slight component, a smaller component of revenue at TVG, which is ad revenue, so advertising revenue. So, for instance, we ran advertisements for DraftKings sometime in the last 12 months. Not so much of that advertising spend going around at the moment, but there is I can't remember what the number is. It's a couple of $1 million a year. It's not a huge number that comes from that are kind of non-handle related revenue sources.
So I should think for modelling that it should track.
Yeah, I think
unless something else happens.
I think so.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's just, but the state makes a difference.
Yeah.
That's the point.
There's no reason for that to continue to move in your favour.
No, we think about it as I think you can think about it simply as a model handle, and then presume that margin stays flat. It'll go up or slightly down. It could go down, actually. Some states argue that the success of the off-track betting has cannibalized their track betting, and they're challenging the fees that the off-track betting firms get. So some large states have challenged that or continue to challenge that. So I just think of it as a generic. I would just model it as an average conversion from handle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Patrick Coffey again from Barclays. Just a follow-up on the exchange. If Generation Next is growing up in a kind of peer-to-peer world using Airbnb and Uber and all of these sort of things, and getting used to a shared economy kind of model for a lot of different parts of their life, how can you make the usability of the exchange easier for that generation that will be kind of betting, which you would probably think is a recreational punter now, that doesn't go onto the exchange because it's just too complicated? Can you make the usability of the exchange, so the interface, far easier for them to understand, and therefore kind of tap them into that kind of peer-to-peer model?
I think I actually had a conversation with this about something. I didn't frame it quite as elegantly. It was more, the thing is too damn complicated. It's not. I think the team has done many things well over the last number of years. I think if we had our time again, I think we probably haven't changed the user interface to the exchange in any material way. There's probably still an opportunity there. I think as it's played out, we've probably used our time wisely, or people have used their time wisely. But to your point, the exchange is peer-to-peer, but yet we've never really sold it on. We haven't sold it as a social product in recent years, and there is some opportunity to do that. As to whether that's something that the customers who want to bet would actually value or not, there's no real clear evidence of that today. But to your point, a demographic that's growing up with a different business model that might value that more than the current customer base.
I think in general, exchange is more of appeals to the trader, right? So whether you like social or don't like, it's a trading mentality, which not every, people don't get on and trade stocks, willy-nilly either. Well, many don't. So I just think it may be, you have to make it easier and everything. But I just think that ultimately it appeals to somebody who wants to trade in and out of position is not the same who wants to put a few bets on some game and watch it finish and have a party because he or she won. So it's just a different mentality.
We've looked at other models where there's kind of community betting models. None of those have got traction. And I think we worry. I think it's appropriate that a firm that's built on a history of innovation worries about who else is out there trying to out-innovate us. So I think there are people here that are sufficiently paranoid about it. But I do think there are basic things we could still do in terms of the user interface to the exchange. The nearest we came to it was obviously Price Rush, but I think there's probably more we could have done and will do. Vaughan.
Thanks. Just a couple of quick follow-ups on the unregulated markets. So now that it's a very diverse range with no material ones, I guess the 15 to 25% annual drop no longer applies. And on Portugal, is there any chance that comes back? Because there was sort of exchange legislation there, wasn't there?
Yeah. So let me take the second one first. When we switched off Portugal in July, August, something like that, summer, we actually thought we'd have it back in 6 or 8 months. We thought there was a fighting chance we'd have it back by the end of the financial year. I think that's now drifted considerably. Right now, the guys that are running the business would be delighted to have it back in calendar 16. And I think our experience in Italy is that, our experience in many places, but in Italy, where we thought it was going to be back every 6 months for 7 years, tells us not to hold our breath for that to happen.